Wynter Tai chats with best-selling author Teja VanWicklen. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and definitely hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos. So in today's chat, we're going to be speaking with a 30-year veteran in the martial arts. Her background includes Korean, Chinese, and Filipino martial arts, as well as firearms and wilderness survival. She is an accomplished mother, filmmaker, and best-selling author, with her book Reimagining Women's Self-Defense published by YMAA Publications. Please welcome Teja VanWicklen.
How are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much for taking the time to come on to the podcast and tell me about, your martial arts background and stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the interview. So for the first question, how did you start the martial arts?
Okay. Well, I was actually, when I was 13, I think 12 or 13, I started doing ballet like a lot of girls did. I mean, this is going way back. We're in the 80s, early 80s. And I did ballet and I loved it. There's a sense of grace and strength with ballet, at least at the beginning levels. It gets very ugly later on and very complicated. But I was really enjoying it. I loved it. I wasn't necessarily doing it to be a profession, but I got very serious about it. I was doing it, 4 or 5 days a week. And then we went away for the summer to the beach, and there was no ballet there. And I didn't know what to do with myself because I had a lot of energy and I needed to be doing something. So it turned out that right next door to us, was a taekwondo instructor and his son. And the son was, Jimmy, was very small for his age. He was 10 or 11 at the time and very small, but, was doing these straight side kicks, these beautiful side kicks, and doing forms in the backyard. And I would just look out my window and stand there and stare at him. And I thought, well, at least for the summer, I can do this instead of ballet. So I did. So I started going to taekwondo. And actually, there's a little more to it than that, because when I was in ballet, one of the things that had begun to occur when I was 14 was I started to fill out a little bit. And in those days, especially, girls were told they had to be a certain shape. And thank goodness that has changed now. But Kate Moss was the model of the time. And though she's a beautiful girl, she was very, very, very thin. And I was thin in the waist, but big in the thighs and the butt.
Mm-hmm.
And so my ballet instructor was starting to tell me that I had to lose weight, that my thighs were too big. So going to taekwondo was kind of a revelation, because I had the flexibility, I had the strength, I could hold my leg up for days, I could move slowly, quickly, I had movement and flexibility, I had the basis of taekwondo already. So I progressed really quickly, and it was a lot of fun because nobody told me my legs were too big. They said, whoa, look at those thighs, look at those legs, stay away from those kicks. So suddenly something that was a negative became a positive, and I just never went back to ballet after that. I just stayed with taekwondo.
All right, so it was martial arts ever since then. So, oh wow, it just so happens that you're into ballet, and a lack of ballet in the area that you went to for that summer, and it
Changed
just
my
so
life.
happens. Wow, that's great. That's great.
Everything.
So, Wow. Talk about it just happened by chance, really, when you really think
It
about it.
wasn't just chance, though. Not only did my legs become an asset instead of, a problem, but I
Hmm.
had come from a rather gritty New York background where no one was watching out for me. And, I had a single parent who was either sick or busy, and no one was raising me.
Hmm.
I was kind of free in the world, roaming the streets. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on. And although not so much physical danger, less physical danger, a lot of emotional danger, a lot of seeing things, hearing things, being part of things that made you feel less than safe. And I think martial arts was a really big draw for me for that reason, because, I felt more in control and more able to handle situations that made me feel uneasy. And that, when you're on your own, is a really big, when you're a small girl on your own, was a really big pull for me. It was like, oh, I don't have to feel this way. I can feel a different way.
So to say that taekwondo or martial arts period came to you at the right time of life. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So, so tell me a little bit more about your martial arts journey. After taekwondo, where did it go from there?
Well, I was in Taekwondo for, um, it's hard to say because, I went to college during that time. So it was, and sometimes I was on and off because I was on internships or I was abroad. But, 10, 12, 15 years I was in Taekwondo. Um, and, I mean, I don't know how much into the weeds you want to get with this stuff. I loved it. I was completely taken with everything. And you didn't have a lot of choices. Even though I was in New York City, it was interesting. I mean, in the 80s, I, you know, I guess I didn't know where to dig. I had a lot of friends who were doing martial arts. Some of them were doing kung fu, with, I think it was Alan Lee on 28th Street. I don't know if you know Alan Lee. Um, some guys were doing Hung Gar. There were some friends who were doing, friends who were doing Kyokushin, but none of them pulled at me more than Taekwondo. There wasn't, it was hard to find internal styles. I didn't get to that till later, as many people do. And So I got stuck in Taekwondo for probably longer than I needed to. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it is to me, and I'm speaking from my experience only, a sport. It is a sport. It is not really conducive to self-defense. It is not really healthy for your body. Um, so I started to recognize those things. I started to recognize that there wasn't, a lot to do. I was with Master S. Henry Cho. It was a wonderful group of people. I loved it. Why are you smiling? Do you know S. Henry Cho?
He was my teacher's teacher.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Well, my teacher, my Patme Kung Fu teacher, Sifu Richard Chin, he did Taekwondo as well with Henry
yeah,
Cho. So it's like, wow,
yeah.
that's
So,
coincidental as well. That's great. So please
yes.
continue.
Yeah, so I was with Master Cho for like 15 years. But the problem was, and I, of course, as you do, especially when you're young, I worshipped, it's hero worship. I didn't have a dad. I worshipped him. I worshipped, and I did everything to make myself important to that school. But, there were a lot of issues in those days. There weren't many women. You didn't have a lot of camaraderie among women. You could never be one of the guys. And so you were always on the outskirts. And without going really deep into that, and I all I you know to give an illustration, I won a lot of tournaments and I put a lot of time and effort in. I was there every day, going to two or three classes a day. And then, and I started to recognize that I wasn't, I got to like second degree black belt, but it took much longer than it took for other people, uh, even though I was winning the tournaments and doing all the things. And the way that it worked at the school at the time was you had to get a certain number of points. So you got, I don't know how interesting this stuff is, so stop me if it's not interesting.
Please keep going,
So
keep going.
if you had a dedicated class on
Mhm.
a day, like you had Wednesday at 6:30, a primetime class, you got 5 points. If you had a, if you just were there as a backup teacher because somebody couldn't make it, you got 3 points. If you were, um, I can't remember if you had a or maybe it was if you had, anyway, it was different. There were different point systems, and you had to
Mhm.
you had to work up to a certain number of points in order to reach a rank. You got points for tournaments and points for different things. But the way it was set up was the guys who had the regular classes were always getting 5 points. And there were no classes for people to teach, and women were always the last ones chosen to teach. So most of the time, I could only assist in a class, which meant I got 1 point. So it took an extraordinarily long time to move up in the ranks because
Mhm.
it was imbalanced to me. Um,
Understandable.
and there were a lot
Understandable.
of other issues too. And again, there weren't that many women, so you were kind of, and I was a young woman, and in those days, there were women in their 30s, and I was the only, 15-year-old in
Mhm.
class. Um, so uh, it was kind of a long, interesting journey of recognizing that I loved something and I was part of something that I didn't entirely fit into. Um,
True. True.
And so that was kind of devastating for me. But at a certain point, I realized, especially when I started playing with friends and sparring with people from other martial arts styles, I was in that mindset. I was in the Taekwondo mindset. This is it. I could get anybody down, right? I know what I'm doing. And then I go and I start playing with my friends, and I'm finding my friends who are doing Hungar, I'm like here, ready to go. And he jumps up and he does a scissor kick, and I'm kind of standing there. I'm lying on the floor looking at the stars, going, what happened? What
Yeah.
what happened? And he just looks at me and goes, Taekwondo not looking so hot anymore, huh? And I thought, okay, I gotta reevaluate here. I gotta think about what other kinds of stuff I can do.
All
Um,
right.
I think Taekwondo it's great for power generation. It's great for using your legs. It's great for learning center of gravity. It's great for a lot of stuff. It is a sport, so it becomes less efficient and effective for actual self-defense, for working from different, at least I was doing traditional style, right? Taekwondo is very
Mhm.
different now. Also, it's some places they've incorporated capoeira, they've incorporated judo, they've incorporated a bunch of stuff so into modern Taekwondo. So it depends on where. This was very traditional,
Mhm.
and so we weren't working from different angles. We weren't working from the floor. We weren't working with grappling. We weren't working with stand-up grappling. We weren't, right. We were missing a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
There was no weaponry. So I kind of drifted away and started looking into other stuff. And I dabbled in Japanese jiu-jitsu, Niseido jiu-jitsu in Brooklyn with some friends. I dabbled in Aikido. I dabbled in, what else did I dabble in? Tiny little bit of judo. A lot of it was just like a few months here and there. I did Tai Chi for about a year in Tompkins Square Park with Roberto Sharp, which was really fun. Um, and I loved the internal martial arts, and I knew that I knew instinctively that I needed them, and that it was something that I really needed to. Having had a lot of injuries from Taekwondo, I needed it. Being someone who's neurodivergent and the world is like a bombardment, I knew I needed it to try to center myself and slow myself down, which has been a really big part of my journey. And then I happened to begin. A friend from Taekwondo ran an entertainment, a major New York entertainment firm called Empire Entertainment, and I ended up running a group called Art of War, which was a martial arts stunt team and performance group. And we traveled the world doing all kinds of big events. And I got to work with some of the best stunt people out there, people from Buffy and people from John Wick and everything. Everybody was involved. And we went to Lebanon, we went to the UK, we were all over America. And I got to hang out with these people. And one of the people who was working with me, who was doing the choreography, Raphael Kayanin, was doing Sayoc Kali. Actually, before this, I should say, long before this, at one point, I was in California working in the film industry for a while, and I got my cousin, who I barely knew at the time, but got to know better. Rick Mitchell was in Balintawak. He was in Balintawak, Arnis. So I was there for 6 months or so, and I went back again, and I managed to get to first level, take a test and get to first level with Balintawak, Arnis. So I was my intro into Filipino martial arts, and I loved it. I loved the stick work. He had some grappling involved in there and stick grappling, which is really cool stuff, and I loved it. So I got involved in that. And then, life got away with me. I went back to New York and I was dabbling until I found Sayoc. And Sayoc was revelatory because um, Tuhan Christopher Sayoc, who we've lost now at a very young age from illness, which is a really, really great loss because he was a true genius. Um, I got to work firsthand with him. It was a much smaller group when I started, and I spent about 10 or 12 years with them. And I wish it had been longer, but again, life got in the way. Um, and they were weapons based, particularly edged weapons based. Um, and Tuhan Chris Sayoc saw martial arts as a much bigger thing than I had been taught to see it as. He saw it as how you live your life and how you think about your health and how you function, not just a series of movements. And I started training with them, and we got to do some really unusual stuff because the way that we trained was not by class, it was by seminar and by weekend. So basically, there was training, there was formal training, there was informal training, and sometimes it was hard to tell which was which. They was in Philadelphia. I left. I showed up. I would show up and spend a weekend, 3 days, 4 days straight in the woods, uh, in a school, wherever, in multiple places. We did all kinds of crazy stuff, including breath holds underwater,
Wow.
paintball. We had elite military and law enforcement people, the air marshals, the Navy SEALs come play with us. Um, and it was, we did all kinds of really fascinating stuff. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say some of this stuff that we did. But suffice it to say, I've been punctured.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been tasered. Um, we played with whatever was available to play with, and it was really it was a whole different can of beans to be doing that than to be just kind of on a clean surface in a clean room. Um, it wasn't. You're in the woods. It was dirty. It was muddy. It was messy. It was wet. We trained in the rain. We trained in the dark. We trained, it felt real. It felt wild. It was, it was life affirming, you know, but, I mean, it's also a bit of a drug, right? Because you're doing this stuff and you feel like, well, if I can survive this, I can survive anything, right? And that's a really great feeling. It's an addictive feeling. But of course, no one's trying to kill you. You're still under glass to some extent. So,
Yes, that.
you start having questions and then you start asking questions. And I had some of the same experiences just in all the martial arts, in all of my various martial arts endeavors, where I just asked too many questions and um, I get myself in trouble because people people don't always want you asking questions about the core tenets of their martial arts. People take their martial arts very seriously. So these last 10 years, I've been kind of getting involved with individual people, and my martial arts have been more cerebral, more about asking questions about real time stuff and what people really need and what's missing and where to put some of the multitude of thoughts that I had over the years of martial arts and what to do with them. And I
Mhm.
went into Mark Williams. Sorry, I don't know if you know all these people. Rory Miller and sorry, Mark McYoung and Eric Kondo and Kathy Jackson and Clint Overland and these people, and we kind of formed a think tank and started talking about um, the areas of martial arts the areas of self-defense, particularly in conflict management, that weren't being delved into entirely. Kind of
Mhm.
the ugly stepchildren of martial arts and self-defense that people don't really want to talk about because it's easier to punch and kick stuff. It feels good to punch and kick stuff, but to look at
Mhm.
yourself and to look at your glitches and your blank areas and to figure out, what's missing from your from your training. It's a lot more, it's a lot scarier, it's a lot darker, it's a lot more complicated. Um,
Yes. I definitely agree with you.
yeah.
Self-examination can definitely teach you a lot about yourself, and that in itself can be scary. Um, I'm so envious at all of the experiences that you have had, right? Because that sounds like stuff that I would like to have done myself. Right? But I want to backtrack for a second there, Teja. Um, you had said that you had that the style of Kali that you have practiced is the Sayoc Kali.
Yeah.
Um, would you mind telling me what that is?
Okay. Well, so Sayakali is a family style. Again, it's Tuhan Christopher C. Sayoc Sr., who is the progenitor of the style. And he uh his form of uh of Kali is primarily it's edged weapons based. Um so basically everything, whether you have a weapon or you don't, the thought process is uh that you are the feeder, you are the primary person in the fight. If someone attacks you, you become the attacker. If you don't have a blade, and Sayak people always have blades, if you don't have a blade, then their blade is your blade. And you don't even have to hold the blade, you can just control their body. Um, and it is I want to say it's a very scientific method. The templates are right-handed and left-handed. Then you have right hand lead, left hand lead, double blade, uh, and then you can do them all backwards. So I say it's like doing trigonometry, you know. Um, it's complicated stuff, and it's very cerebral. It's very complicated. It's very challenging, uh, and it also has to do with um, you know fear, hacking your fear, and um, there are survival aspects to it. And I mean, we did knife forging seminars also where we made our own blades. I mean, so it was very involved stuff. Um, and so it was a very, very different view of martial arts than I had had in Taekwondo, which was much cleaner. It was much more laboratory.
So this is more like this is
This was in the
deadly
field.
survival kind
This
of
is in the field. Yeah, this was in this stuff we did in the field, like live training, hardcore training. We did whip training, stick grappling, um, some full contact stuff. Uh, yeah, and we had really amazing people would come to train with us, so we would get to learn from them. Bow making and all kinds of stuff. It was an amazing group of people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a very good answer. It's a very good answer. I'm thank you for telling me what the Sayoc Kali is. So now the second part of that question, right? I feel very confident asking you this, especially after you've told me about your background with the art of war and training with different Navy SEALs and different law enforcement agencies. How effective is this style of Kali for self-defense?
Um, it was by far uh, the most useful style I had studied. I think um, martial arts are many faceted, and they come at fighting from various different standpoints, right? There are people who, you focus on weapons, you focus on working on the ground, you focus on stand-up grappling, you focus on kicking, you focus on striking, you focus on striking from close quarters, you focus on, improvised weapons and, like in Krav Maga, right? There's a lot of different options. And each style tends to kind of come at fighting from a very particular angle and work that angle to its most detailed possibilities. Um, so I think it was, I think Kali was, it was really, Sayoc Kali was really the kind of the biggest, most, the broadest martial art that I had encountered that kind of did, they had jujitsu people and we did grappling, we did judo, we did a bunch of things. Anything that had merit. And when I was in Taekwondo, one of the things at the time, and you may have found this also, was it was very much a closed system. You weren't really allowed. It was kind of like you were cheating. If you got caught training somebody somewhere else or with somebody else, right? Your master called you into the office and was like, "So, you know, I hear you're cheating on me." It was bad. You were like, I was just watching. I was just invited to watch something, sir. It was a very big deal. You didn't cheat on your master, right? So it was nice to be able to cross train, and trade secrets and stuff. So that was also very nice to be able to just have curiosity about other styles and invite everybody in and try new stuff and keep in touch with people. There was a lot of Silat, Silat and Kali kind of come together a lot in a lot of different places.
Mm.
The Filipino and Indonesian styles of martial arts.
Mhm. Speaking of that, there are terms. There's Kali, there's Arnis, I think there's another term. What was the difference between them? Are they all Filipino or
They're all Filipino.
okay?
I am going to embarrass myself here and say I don't really know why our niece and Kali are split. They may be separate parts of the Philippines. I'm sure somebody else will know this, and truthfully, I should.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't find in my training when I studied our niece, my trainer didn't really discuss Kali a lot, and when I was in Kali, they didn't discuss our niece a lot. The crossover is, from what I know, Bobby Tabuada, which is the arnis, the type of arnis that I studied, was very stick centric, very, very
Mhm.
stick centric, all stick fighting. And Sayoc is very edged weapons, although they do stick work too. But the stick in arnis can be a stick, and the stick in Kali was decidedly a sword. So that went to the way you held. Like, you could hold a stick in arnis in any number of ways, but in Kali, wherever you held it as if there were a blade, and that meant the way that you struck, you were striking with the blade. You weren't, right. Um,
Mhm.
so there were some differences, um, but I'm not sure why there are different names, and I should know that.
Okay, no problem. No problem. That's the best answer I could get because I really don't know. All right, so we're going to change gears just a little bit, right? This next question, it happens to deal with kung fu, the term kung fu, which literally means a skill acquired over time, right? So literally we'll use it as meaning skill, right? What do you believe, honestly, is the hardest part of developing a skill in martial art, kung fu?
That's a big question. Oops, sorry. That's a big question, and I want to say slowing down. Um, I think we plow through. I think we seek strength and speed. I think we go, 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 and we want to be the best, and we want to be the strongest, the most powerful, the smartest. And I think we grab the football and we run as fast as we can, and we plow through the other people. And sometimes we find we've run in the wrong direction, that we're working so fast and so hard that we're not actually observing the fact that time is relative and that sometimes you can learn a lot more, and gather a lot more details by moving slowly and by going internal. And this is where the internal martial arts come in. I have always been fascinated with them, and I wish I had been able to settle into a teacher that teachers didn't keep moving away, and I didn't hadn't lost touch for so many years. It was awful. I'm getting back into it now finally, but I wish I had 20 years under my belt. It's magical stuff. And I think every martial artist is missing out if they're not doing internal martial arts. at this point. I'm realizing, I think, whatever your passion is, whether it's kickboxing or it's jujitsu, one of our guys in Sayoc, he wasn't even a higher up. He was a medium level instructor, and he had done 6, 7 years of Bagua. And his Kali was very different. And especially in knife training, you don't want to give people so much pressure that they know where you are. You want to be soft, right? Because you don't want people to know where you are. A knife is a scary thing to confront, right? You don't want to tell people where you are and where they should stab you. You want to not be there, right? You want soft. You want to try soft, not hard. And I think the concept of trying softer is something that every martial artist needs. I think it's better on your body. I think it teaches you how to use your body better. I think it teaches you how to use your mind better. And all this said, if I had known this when I was 17 years old, I still couldn't have done it. I still would have stayed in Taekwondo. I loved it. I loved punching bags. I loved breaking 6 inches of pine with a kick. I loved battering myself ruthlessly. I loved the testosterone. It just made me feel great. And I probably couldn't have slowed down then if I had wanted to. But I think sometimes it takes age to slow you down. I think it's not so much age as having tried so many things and having failed so many times to reach a certain point inside yourself that you finally go, okay, I'll slow down, right? That's the last thing that I can do now. I'll do it. And once you accept being able to move slowly through your training, you start to find things. You start to find answers that you didn't have. Answers about how to move, answers about how to think. Yeah, so I think slowing down and not being afraid to hear what's going on inside your joints, how you're moving, how you're thinking. It's all mindfulness, right? Like how to, when your mind is running away with you, how to observe your thoughts and not get angry, how to not get frustrated, how to de-escalate yourself, right? Which is not taught often, and it's an unpopular concept. It's very hard to teach. It's very hard to understand. And most people don't understand that when you're in an altercation, I had a conversation with somebody recently about this. When you're in an altercation and somebody is in your face and coming at you, the first person you have to de-escalate is not them, it's you. Because you go like this and you start to tense every muscle in your body, right? And the first thing you have to say to yourself is, did this person have a bad day? Why are they taking this out on me? Why is this happening now? Does it have anything to do with me? Right? And that's very difficult to do, especially when you're a small woman and you're used to the world kind of pushing you out of the way and ignoring you, and, or you're older people. This happens to people in their 60s and 70s and 80s, right? Their humanity is ignored. Get out of my way. You're nobody. You're driving too slowly. You're doing this too slowly. You're taking too long. Get out of my way. You're being dismissed by doctors. And people get angry. And when you get angry and you lose control, you put yourself in danger. And we don't like to admit that. So de-escalation, self-de-escalation is the first big step.
And that's
And not only, but internal martial arts is a really good place to find that ability. It's a very elusive ability.
and all of it is slowing down. I'm telling you, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. That has to be my favorite answer to that question. Seriously, right? What is the hardest part of developing Kung Fu? It is a very profound answer. Slow down. Yes, it's true. It's true. Because when you said that when you were at 17 doing your taekwondo, right? Doing everything is fast, 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 fast. You said it perfectly. Back then, you did not have the ability to slow down. But yeah, it's something that does come with age. And you know what? I'm finding that to be very true as well. Because I started Tai Chi Started in my early 20s. I'm now in my mid 40s.
Wow.
And and
Lucky you.
well, it's again, I'll say it's relative. So what happens is the lessons that I'm uncovering now, I did not uncover in my 20s because of the same thing you're saying. I didn't slow down. Right? I just like, hey, this is taking too long. All right, let me just skip that. I'll come back to it. But you know what the thing is? You never go back to it. Right? So that's what I'm saying.
The
Like,
miscommunication between your body and your mind. Even when your body's moving slowly, your mind's still going. What do I have to eat tomorrow? I have to do something. Don't I have to get, aren't I meeting so and so? And you're not, it's kind of this, it's this collaboration between your mind and body, this kind of meeting where they start moving together. That's really amazing, right? This sudden collaboration where you're in sync with your
mhm,
mind and your body that is really magical. Um, and it's almost like, finding the universe in one small object. Like you can travel the entire world really fast and actually come home and go, I didn't really see anything. I don't remember anything that I saw. Like, what did I learn? I went to all these places, but I went into this museum and that museum, but I tried to see all the paintings at the Louvre, but I don't even remember one real single painting that I really saw. Or you can go to a museum and you can sit in front of one painting or two or three paintings for an hour each and come away feeling like you really did something. And it's this concept of deeper observation and finding more in smaller moments. And the universe you can find the universe in very small spaces, and you can find yourself in very small, you know, you don't have to you don't have to move through everything. You don't have to know every single technique. You don't have to fight every single person. You don't have to get to the highest level of martial arts. You can stay in a very deep, quiet place, with the right instructor, especially, and find a lot of magic.
that's very true. Especially that last part you said with the right instructor. That is important, right? Because it's no more important than having, life itself, right? You have to have someone to guide you correctly, right? So we're going to go into our next question, Teja, right? How has all of your training, right? I mean, all of it, even the training with the special forces, your stunt training, everything, your martial arts, all rolled into one, right? Because we're talking about life impact here, right? How has all of that influenced your life?
I mean, that's a difficult question. I mean, it's martial arts has been like a religion for me. During the periods of time when I wasn't training, it just felt like something really important was missing from my life. So I was always um, searching for something that satisfied that urge to be learning. What has it changed? Well, I mean, my whole life has been involved, has been martial arts related in some form or another. I did worked in stunt, I did stunt stuff. I was a personal trainer for many years. I became an EMT for a while, all of it kind of being related to safety training and self-defense and protection and now I wrote a book about it. It's been a through line throughout my life. Again, I think it probably all harks back, if you're gonna, be Freudian about it, it probably all harks back to the fact that I was a very unsafe kid, and um, figuring out how to feel safer in the world was a very big part of um, what I was probably doing all those years, even when I didn't know it.
Hmm. I hear you. I hear you, man. I hear you. So yes, it's true. From all your accolades, it's true that martial arts is definitely all of your life, right? All of it. So let me ask you a question. Would you consider yourself a normal person walking through a martial arts world, or would you call yourself a martial artist walking through the world?
Wow, I think I'm both. I think uh, a big part of my story was had been training in Sayoc, and we had been doing all these very big, uh, you know, complex, having these serious, training seminars. And then I got pregnant, and I was training pregnant. And at a certain point, I had to stop training, and then I had a baby, and I did some training with the baby. But I realized very quickly, so I had a rough pregnancy and a rough 9 months after pregnancy, that uh, there were a lot of Sayoc answered more of my questions about protecting other people and self-defense than any other martial art had. They really thought outside of the box. But there were specific questions about when you're responsible for an infant, and you're weak and tired. And after, when that happened, I felt so incredibly vulnerable, and that was a real kick in the head. It was, I've got 30 years of training here. How do I not know how to address this? I got a baby in my arms. I've got a Moby wrap. He's pinned to my body, or I'm wearing a pack, or I've got a stroller or whatever. And I start thinking about all the different scenarios that we've trained in. And what do I do? Leave the stroller there while I fight the guy? I mean, what happens? Do I turn around and the stroller's gone? I mean, what do I do? I've got a baby on my chest. What is he? Is he my body armor? How am I going to fight? How am I going to kick? How am I going to use a weapon? How am I going to grapple? So I at that point I kind of flipped from being a martial artist, to go back to your question. I kind of flipped from being a martial artist um, in the world to being a civilian again, questioning all of my martial arts background and straddling that very interesting line of martial arts and civilian, and kind of sitting right in the middle and trying to figure out
Mm.
where they met, and
So
how.
it really, it's like a constant flip flop for you. It's constant
Yes,
flip flop. Like, because
yes.
you get that martial arts man, you have to turn on and turn off at times. I mean, it's seeming. All right, that's awesome. That is awesome, Tesha. So let's go ahead and take it into a next very, cerebral question, right? Well, all of them are, right? So if you could teach the new generation of martial artists only one thing, it could be technique, it could be philosophy, but it can only be one. What would it be?
One thing, one thing. Slow down would probably be. But we already covered that. Um, however fast, however, I guess slow down would be from the from you from the point of view of, you find something you love, you want to train in it, you want to be the best at it, go, go, go. Um, Slow that down and find yourself in the work. Um, Remember where you are, remember what you're doing and where you're coming from and why you are there, and do things deliberately and thoughtfully, and don't just follow the leader or follow or drink the Kool-Aid or go straight in one direction. Stop every now and then, like you're going through a forest, climb a tree, look around, make sure you're in the right place, right? Climb back down, make sure you're using your peripheral vision to see where you are in your training. Um, and always be thinking for yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. I tell you, it's like a metaphor for life, really. Um, all too often when we're walking through life, our heads are down. Even now in today, our heads are down because we're looking at the phone, right? How many accidents, how many people, meet into like fatal accidents because they're not looking in front of them. So, that is a very good piece of advice there, Tejo, right? You need to look up every now and again to get the big picture before going on. And the only way to do that, again, I'm loving this, is to slow down. You can't do it properly unless. That's
It's
great.
it's it's interesting because when we think of slowing down, we think of not getting less done, right? I'm slowing down, I'm not covering as much ground. And it's not true. You can often cover more ground slowing down than you can. Because again, if you're moving really quickly over ground, you're not in contact with that ground. You're not getting to know that ground. You're not getting to see the things around you. You're not paying attention. You're not learning from things. You're just moving fast. When you slow down, you gather a lot more information. Internal information, external information. And one of the dangers, I think, is there are people who want to study a martial art and they want to be the best at that one martial art and stay there all their lives and go through it and become an artist, a true artist. And that is absolutely a valid endeavor, right? You're a dancer, you're in ballet and you do ballet all your life and you are a master of ballet or you're a master of jujitsu. But other people have they don't just want to teach or be an artist. They want to know things. They want to find things. They want to learn about themselves. They want to learn self-defense, whatever. And for those people, you certainly need to ask questions about your instructor and ask questions about whether the martial art that you're in is still the right place for you. And be there because you want to be there and be there because you are absorbing information and not just going there day after day to do the same thing and phone it in and not actually really being mentally and physically present in the practice.
And
Because
that's the most
you
important,
stop
yes.
learning. It's very possible to go to a class day after day, week after week, and actually not get stronger, not get smarter, and not even learn very much more unless you are present in the practice.
That's very true. That is very true. It's one thing that I'm finding that it gets increasingly harder to do nowadays, right? And the more, yeah, I mean, of course, the more you do it, is the easier it is to do. But it more and more, it's a lot easier for people to just not be present. I mean, right? It's like as if people don't want to deal with reality. I mean, because when you're present, that's what you're dealing with.
We're not allowed to be present anymore. We're outsourcing our minds to phones, and we're even if we want to stay away from phones and computers and iPads, we're expected to we're expected to touch base with people on a regular basis. It becomes very difficult to slow down, harder than ever before to slow down and center yourself and find a place where you can learn from, where you're really absorbing. I mean, one of the things I learned, just to deviate for a second, from the Navy SEALs was we used to call it the Navy SEAL download, because things that took most of us, I told you about these complicated templates we would do, could take us, a month to learn to do something left hand, right-handed, right hand lead, left hand lead, simultaneous, right? And the Navy SEALs would learn it in a day. And they would just walk in and they would just be like, they just go into this mode. They had this way of they were trained to go into this mode and they would just do it. And it was like being downloaded into their bodies, not their minds. And the truth is, you don't learn martial arts here. So if you're thinking, am I moving left or am I moving right? Okay, wait. So I'm doing this move and then I'm turning to my left side with my right foot forward. Forget about it. It'll take you forever to learn. It'll be clunky in your body. It has to go straight from your eyes into your physical body, not through your prefrontal cortex. And the Navy SEALs had a way of doing this. They would watch it, and then they would just kind of go into this mode and just start doing it, and we would just go, like, seriously. This took us. We worked with these guys for a week on this one section of moves, and they just 5 minutes and they're like, okay, what's next? So, and people think, well, I'm just not that smart. It doesn't have to do with smart. It has to do with slowing down inside. It has to do with listening from the inside. It has to do with being able to bypass this and just have your body feel what the other person is doing and have it go into its muscle memory and not mental memory.
There's something there's something I just thought about this with this whole slow down thing. When you're talking about that about the Navy SEALs being able to having that ability to see something and be able to do it. My teacher, my kung fu teacher, Sifu Richard Chin, he um he always said this, right? That old Chinese masters didn't want to show their kung fu. They didn't want to show their martial arts. Why? Because another person who's good at martial arts, who's, good at movement, can watch them
And
and
pick it up.
learn what they're doing right then and there. Right? So, there is a lot of truth to what you're saying. There are a lot of
Trade
people who can do
secrets.
that. Right? It's like my Sifu, he says, look, this is the way how he teaches me. He's like, look, you have 6 tries. I will show it to you 6 times. If after 6 times, I'm not showing you again. I'm like, okay. Okay. But you know what the funny thing about it is? If you put your mind to it and you actually by the 5th time, you've
If you put
actually
your body to it, if you put your body to it.
better said. True. True. Very good. Very good. If you put your body to it, by the 5th time, you've already learned it. Right? You're doing it in second nature. I'm like, wow. There's a lot of truth to what he said, and there's a
Bypassing
lot.
this is so hard for us. It's again,
Yes.
it's kind of one of the biggest lessons. It's like you got to get this out of the way because this is slowing your training down.
Yes. Yes.
So the ego, the need to know everything, the need to be better than everybody else, the need for power, for knowledge, the need to criticize everything that you do, whether it's good or bad. Oh, I could have done that better. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm still making that same mistake, right? This slows you down
Mhm.
so much. It's not, it slows you down. It speeds you up and it slows down your training. This speeds your mind up. It slows your training down. Once you slow this down, the body then learns faster.
Mhm. Mhm. So it's like you're taking out the filter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
The filter messes everything up.
That's true. Yes, that's true. This is so much fun. I love it. I'm loving the way how we answered this one. That was great. Slow down. And even that's even the answer for the previous question. Slow down. It's great. It's absolutely great.
And I don't
So,
say it lightly because having ADHD and being on the autism spectrum, it's been a journey. I used to speak so fast when I was a kid that it was a mess. People were constantly teasing me for it. Um, so I don't, when I say slow down, I'm speaking from experience. My son has the same issues, and slowing down is not easy for me. It has not been easy. It has been a very long, arduous journey. So I don't say it like everyone should just do it and it should be easy. It's actually one of the single hard. It may be easy for some people who are born, with the powers of observation and who don't. There's some people who just don't talk a lot and they just observe. And I envy those people tremendously. But if you're not those people, then listening to your internal voices and slowing yourself down can be one of the single hardest things you'll ever do.
mm, profound, man. Profound. That's great. That is great. Oh, that's great. Slow down is perfect. So, going to our last question, Teja. It's a hard one. How can you be contacted?
That is actually a hard one because I am in the process of trying to figure out social media and all that stuff. So I would say the best way, my clearinghouse right now would be my website, which is right now just tejavanwicklen.com, my author site for the book. So it's TejaVanWicklen. Sorry about the long name. But it is
It is abs.
tejavanwicklen.com. That's what I was told I had to do for the book. That's an author site, and that'll be the clearinghouse. So you can contact me from there, and that's where I will add stuff, and Instagram and everything will be at the top of the screen. It's there now, so you can find, sign up for a newsletter or whatever through the website is the best.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, guys, contact information for Teja VanWicklen will be in the description down below. Also, in the description down below will be a link for her new best-selling book, Reimagining Women's Self-Defense. Again, all in the description down below. Also, there will be a link for Feiyue shoes. If you need a link for Feiyue shoes, go ahead and click the link down below, get the best prices, get the best deals, all at feiyueshoes.com. Teja, thank you so much for the time you've taken to speak with me. It has been fun. It has been real. It's great hearing about your life story in the martial arts and so on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. This was fantastic. You're so easy to talk to. I really appreciate it. Thanks.